A happy Black Friday to you, and welcome into the Black Friday edition of the Gashouse Gang alongside of Pauley Miklasz. My name is Matt Pauley. We are so glad that you're spending part of your day with us. Many people taking holiday today. Maybe you're recovering after doing some early morning shopping, whatever it might be. Glad to have you with us. Bernie, happy day after Thanksgiving. Happy Black Friday. I hope you had a wonderful day yesterday.
It was great, nice and relaxing. And, I overate, which, believe it or not, first time in a long time where I actually felt uncomfortable after eating on Thanksgiving. I think I overdid it. So anyway, but no, I'm doing great, man. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. The pleasure's all mine for sure. As we are brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. If you were running that heater with the, I put on the stocking cap this morning when I took the dogs out. It's a little chilly out there, Bernie.
Yeah, it was. We have a crazy cat. We love her, and we actually rescued her off the street. Yet, some people will think when I tell them this that we're irresponsible or crazy. She's still kind of indoor cat, outdoor cat. And some reasons, like she wants to go out in the cold and she looks miserable and we have to beg her to come in. And it's just like, I get kind of tired of it. It's like, if you want to go out there and shiver, you shiver. I mean, we got this beautiful house and you got the run of the place and all the heat you can handle. So no, I feel bad for the animals out there. I really do in this kind of cold.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to get a whole lot worse than it is right now. We got a lot of things to get into. And Bernie, we talk Cardinals baseball every single day here on the Gashouse Gang. And I've mentioned this on Sports Open Line a couple times, but I haven't spoken with you about it. And it's something that confuses me. And I was, you had a video, and people should be subscribed to your YouTube channel at The Bernie Show. You did a really good breakdown recently of Oliver Marmol and the reasons he could keep his job and the reasons he might not keep his job beyond this upcoming season. And you made the comment, and you were totally right on. You made the comment at one point in that video that Oliver Marmol isn't quite as analytically driven as maybe some Cardinals fans would think that he is. And we got a comment on this show not that long ago that we never got to, but I've been wanting to get to it. A guy named Marty said, I've been a Cardinals fan since I was old enough to listen on the radio. I'm now 81. I'll always be a Cardinals fan. I believe the Cardinals are relying too much on computers and not enough on working on players' strengths. Let the young guys play. Let their natural abilities be the most important thing to work on. Don't give them too much to think about. Just let them play ball. I believe in see the ball, hit the ball. So I want to use those two things to kind of jump off here. There is a belief among many Cardinals fans that the Cardinals rely on analytics too much and shouldn't, where my contention is they don't rely on analytics enough and should.
I don't know how to break it to people, but when Bill DeWitt hired Jeff Luhnow in the early aughts, the Cardinals were winning. They were in good shape. Walt Jocketty was a hell of a general manager. He made some phenomenal trades at a time where it was easier to make the kind of trades that he made at that time than it is now. But he brought in Jeff Luhnow, among other things, to incorporate analytics and to hire an analytics staff and to fold that into all the things they do to try to get a competitive edge, including evaluate potential draft picks and find qualities based in their metrics that could tell them, hey, they're going to be better than a lot of teams think. So the Cardinals were way ahead of the curve, right? Mm-hmm. And it's because Bill DeWitt wanted a more analytically driven team. Well, what happened after that? The Cardinals they won 2 World Series with this new system, this new model. They won 2 World Series. They're in the playoffs every year. I mean, this run between 2000 and 2015 was extraordinary. They won 4 pennants. They won. They were in the NLCS every year, just about. And this was all with a system that was very, very heavy on analytics. In fact, the Cardinals were right up at the top with 2 or 3 other teams leading the industry in this area. And there were all the teams, including the ones in their own division, were like, well, how are we going to catch up with the Cardinals? How are we going to catch up with the Cardinals? They've really got to jump on us. They're ahead of the curve on this. Bill DeWitt, gave his team a huge advantage by bringing in Luhnow. And so what happened? Well, Luna left and they de-emphasized analytics. They didn't spend as much money on it. He had between 8 and 10 analysts that were a big part of that operation, analytically minded, smart people that left to go to Houston or other places. Some of them are now running teams, right? Like the guy in Baltimore, there's others. So the Cardinals went to becoming an industry leader in analytics, the envy of most clubs, right? To then having that become kind of a weak point compared to the rest of the industry. The rest of the industry not only caught up, many teams surpassed the Cardinals. And I had to give you I didn't give the fans the history on this. So analytics were a backbone, a foundation, and a strength. And there is no one who is even remotely sane can question or criticize or say, well, it didn't work. What? It, at least in the modern era, the expansion era, it was the greatest run of baseball in the history of the franchise. Okay. So what has changed? What has changed? They fell behind the industry standards in analytics. Can I be crass?
Yeah.
They got a lot dumber. Okay. They used to be smarter. They got a lot dumber. The baseball IQ level went down and down and down after 2015. The analytics thing just fell apart. And that's why they're in the state they're in. It's one of the reasons why they're in the state they're in. So I'm at a loss to figure this out. When analytics were a huge priority, the Cardinals were a great baseball operation and a great team. As soon as that started to decline, the team on the field started to decline. So how is analytics? I don't understand this. How is analytics like the great devil? That's the devil that brought the Cardinals down. No, it's the exact opposite. Yeah. All right, I feel better now. You got listen. I woke up slow today. You got me going, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I've been sitting on this one for a few days. The moment I heard you say the thing about Ali, I mean, you know,
I don't get it.
Bernie and I've got to talk about this, and I hear it all the time. And it's look, I keep repeating myself, and then I always say back to fans who believe the Cardinals rely too much on it. I say, name a team out there that wins at a high level. Or name a team that doesn't win at a high level that does rely too much on it. Yeah, we could talk about the Dodgers spending money. The Dodgers have the best baseball operation around. They do everything right. There's a reason the Mets had the turnaround that they did this past year. It was because David Stearns walked in and they started making smart decisions. We know the Astros are really good at making smart decisions. We know the Rays are really good at making smart decisions. We know the Brewers are really good at making smart decisions. And smart decisions are all based upon having information. What's information? It's analytics.
And I'm with you, like frustrated in that. Number one, I just don't understand how people don't understand the connection in terms of the rise of the franchise, sustained success at the highest level, and then the slow deterioration of the franchise. It's still a respectable franchise. They've had some success, but it's been harder and harder and harder for them to get back to that level. Mm-hmm. And they had their worst season since 1990 in 2023. They don't even have enough infrastructure. They haven't, and this is where Chaim Bloom's going to change everything. They haven't had enough infrastructure at the major league level. And I know you're around Busch Stadium. I know you're talking to people. I talk to people in my own way. I like to be kind of the secret squirrel doing it, right? And I've had a lot of conversations and text message conversations with people down there who are, in the middle of everything. Said, we're really envious of what a lot of teams are doing, and a lot of teams that we have to beat. And we don't have as much stuff as they do when it comes to information analytics. Not Dusty Blake in particular, who's really good, but has not had nearly the tools and the information and the technology and analytics, heavy analytics to become to really build the kind of staff that they need to try to build. That's why it's interesting. They hired the guy from Seattle, the 33-year-old. What's his name? Pierpoint. What's his name? I forget his name already.
Matt Pierre. Yeah, Pierre. I can look it up.
Pierpoint, I think, or something like that. I should know that. I apologize. 33-year-old guy, like a whiz kid type pitching director. heavy in the analytics, heavy into knowing how to make pitchers better. Dusty Blake's really good at making pitchers better. So I would like someone to tell me, why is that a bad thing? Like what's the negative? If you're any industry that you're in, if you have a lot of competition and your competitors have a clear-cut advantage of you, is something that has become increasingly important in Major League Baseball, and you're catching up, and you're going to even try with Chaim Bloom to move ahead again. Why is that a bad thing? I just don't understand this. It's just, I'm at a loss. No one was anyone talking about analytics and the evil of analytics when the Cardinals between 2000 and 2015 played in more postseason games and won more postseason games than anybody? Were analytics, were they the curse of the franchise that was going to leave the St. Louis Cardinals in ruins? I don't recall that.
I'm sure there was somebody out there, but we all shook our head at them. Yeah,
I must have missed that. Well, my gosh, the Cardinals are a disgrace. They're falling apart because of analytics. I guess some people say that, for example, when they lost a couple in LCS that they should have won. But that, obviously is stupid because that's not the reason they lost in an LCS. I don't get it, man. They're fine, but DeWitt, and see, we can't have it both ways. I mean, those of us, I think, understand the importance of analytics without being worshipful of analytics. I've been raising Cain for years now about how the Cardinals have slipped behind. Their model's outdated. And it was. Well, they have finally had a reckoning and realized, well, wait a minute, we've lost our advantage and we got to do something about it. But yet it seems it seems like in the things that you hear back from fans, and too many things when I hear back from fans, analytics. It's the root of all evil. It's causing the end of it's destroying the franchise. I don't know. No, they're actually going to try to heal the franchise. Yeah. You know why? Because they're no longer going to be at such a competitive disadvantage. But what I've learned, and I think you've learned, is don't you dare try to tell some people that it isn't all about how large your payroll is. Don't even try to have that conversation. I had a thing the other day. Somebody was saying like, well, I don't understand this Arenado thing. I don't understand this. I don't understand that. They can go out and they can get this. They can go sign this free agent. They can sign this and I'm like, I think I said this the other day, and I'll shut up after this, and I apologize. Whoa. So you, again, not to pile on John Mozeliak, why would any fan, seriously, of sound mind, want John Mozeliak to go out this winter and spend money when you got Chaim Bloom taking over next year, and you got you're taking on a huge project this winter, which is to actually, I don't know, have a up to date player development system and the infrastructure in the minor leagues, having enough instructors of all things. But you want the guy that's made so many mistakes to go out and just incinerate more dollars in a trash can? What is wrong with you if you think that, right? You can't criticize him for the mistakes he's made and then just say more. Where's the disconnect in that thinking?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's an odd thing, and there's some people, we can say that, we can yell from the mountaintop, and there's going to be people who just will not acknowledge what we're saying.
And I'll say it again. Whitey Herzog, big into analytics. They just weren't called analytics. The guy that I grew up learning ball from, Earl Weaver, way ahead of the times, analytics, except it wasn't called that the way he did it. Yeah, Tony La Russa, big on analytics, because he wanted information, man. He wanted anything that was going to get him an advantage. He didn't call it analytics. In fact, he sort of bemoaned the fact maybe analytics in terms of reducing the human element was becoming a problem. And I actually think there's some merit to that. The thing you want is an organization that's got all the competitive advantages, and including a robust analytics department and a lot of technology that gives you an advantage. But it's still a people-based game, and you still have to be able to teach players, and you still have to be able to handle personalities and all that stuff. It's not one or the other. The great organizations do both. So I'm not sure, that's another thing, since I'm raising Cain. I'm not sure why so many people seem to think these things are mutually exclusive. You're either all analytics or you're all, well, we're going to go old school. We just see the ball, hit the ball, and that's it. No, you can do both. The best teams out there are doing both. So again, what's the problem?
Yeah. This is the Gashouse Gang. I'm Matt Pauley. That's Bernie Miklasz. And Bernie, we are being brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a wonderful company, a wonderful sponsor of this show.
Yeah, when I was getting hot there, hollered about this, I just clicked on my American Standard mini split in my room, even though it's 30 degrees outside. I had to turn my little mini split air conditioner on, installed by Saliga, just to cool my brow down a little bit. Anyway, Saliga Heating and Cooling is very dear to us because they've been taking care of the Miklasz family for 15, 16 years. And this American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer has been taking care of generations of St. Louis family since 1927. Dan Saliga is a fourth generation owner operator of this great family business. They put everything into it. They have a great staff. They're knowledgeable. They're honest. They're prompt. They're professional. When they come into your home, they're classy and they can solve problems and save you money. Yes, both, since we're on that, both things are possible, right? They can solve a problem, but save you money as well. And that's what we love about Saliga Heating and Cooling. Take a look at becoming a Priority Club member. It's a maintenance plan. You get some perks with that, but you also make sure that your heat's running well before the cold stuff sets in, or your AC's blowing as cold as it should be, working great before the hot weather comes in. And there are a lot of benefits to that. So go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, and having that maintenance program will give you some peace of mind. One more thing, financing options are available subject to credit approval. But again, find out all the information and get the phone number by going to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. And we are thankful to Dan Saliga for sponsoring the Gashouse Gang here on KMOX.
That's Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. As mentioned, this is the Gashouse Gang, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. So far, so good, Bernie, for the Blues. Since Jim Montgomery took over, they've been fun. They've played with energy. They've played like they care. They scored 9 seconds into the game the other day, scored 3 first-period goals, and then hung on. Jordan Bennington became the all-time wins leader in the history of the organization. You're always going to get a bump from a coach. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that what we're seeing right now is indicative of what we're going to see the rest of the way. But I do have to wonder, has the ceiling gotten a little bit higher for this team this year? The ceiling was probably never them being a Stanley Cup champion. It was never them having a deep run in the playoffs. But going into the year, the ceiling was them staying in playoff contention and maybe getting in. Am I speaking too soon to say that maybe that goes a little bit up with Montgomery?
No, I want you to answer that because it's a great question. It's your question. And the other thing is I've been bloviating and talking, just going nuts here. So I'll catch my breath. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that first.
I think it does. I think they play better. I'm the guy who always tells people, Bernie, like, pump the brakes when coaches get changed, when managers get changed. You always see the bump. You always see the residue from the good stuff from the last coach and the good stuff from the current coach come together. So I'm very aware that when you bring in a new leader or make a big change, there tends to be a bump. That being said, there also tends to be a bump when you lose a top player because everybody else kind of lifts their game temporarily and then it comes back. And that didn't happen when the team lost Robert Thomas. That didn't happen when the team lost Philip Broberg. So this is the first bump that we've actually seen from this team. I am confident that Jim Montgomery can get this team to score more goals. I think that is the one thing that we're going to see moving forward. So that at least lifts their ceiling in terms of how they've been playing. Does it lift what they could do in the playoffs? I asked that question because I want to say yes, but at the same time, I have a hard time believing that they can be a team that maybe they can steal a victory in the first round of the playoffs, and that would be great. But it's hard for me to believe it could be anything more than that. So maybe that's a little bit of a ceiling lift.
Well, I'm with you for the most part. I don't disagree with anything you said. I would just say that I feel, this is from my viewpoint, I feel a lot better about their chances of getting to the playoffs. I mean, I wasn't going to entirely write it off because they were still, because there are a few teams in the West that haven't been playing as well as they should. So the Blues mathematically were hanging in the picture. They weren't that far out, but the way that the direction of the team was going in the final couple of weeks or so of Drew Bannister, there was no chance they were going to make the playoffs because you just can't play that poorly literally in every single area and be considered a playoff contender. But the thing about Jim Montgomery that I like, and I apologize if I said this maybe earlier this week or so on Gashouse Gang, but it's okay to repeat it, is that, yeah, you do get that new coach bounce a lot. A lot of teams do. That's why general managers and owners fire coaches. They figure, well, look at what happened to that team. Oh, they fired the coach and boy, the players responded and blah, blah, blah. And that's true. A lot of times it doesn't work as well. But what's different about this one is Jim Montgomery has a history with 15 players on this team. And on that list of 15 are, other than Broberg and Holloway, well, they're not on the list. But then you add guys like that to that group. But the 15 players that were there for him with the Blues in his final season as an assistant coach to Berube, they're all here. And they're also their most essential players. They really are. And all of these guys, their productivity was on the wane. And they weren't playing up to standard. And they weren't being used right in some instances. Like Buchnevich is not a center. It was one of the nuttiest things I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. You can't play him at center. So Montgomery has a really positive history with this group. So he can come in and get an immediate response. They know, the core people on this team know him. He knows them. He knows what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, what they got to work on. He also understands the personnel as a whole and the style they have to play and things they can do better. So he came into this job not as an interim coach from the outside where it's like, well, we got to give him 2 or 3 weeks to try to get a handle on this. Jim Montgomery knew what to do the first hour he was on the job. And that's a big deal in my opinion. So this team has new life. You can just see it. And I think he's going to bring out the best in them. And to your question, I don't know yet what their ceiling could be, right? Yeah. But I do think that now I take them seriously as a team that can get into the playoffs. And I certainly wasn't doing that before the coaching change.
I always like going back to what is said when a big decision is made and then see like the fruits of those comments. And Doug Armstrong said, the Blues need to stop trying to pass the puck into the net. Or that's a paraphrase of what he said. Basically, the idea is put the damn puck on goal. And we're seeing that. And there's something to that. And you want to have, dirty, not dirty in terms of like bad, but dirty in terms of rough and grungy. You want to have that kind of play in front of the net. But we've seen a lot of shots on goal in these first 2 games. And we've seen Zach Bolduc was told, shoot the puck. And he does, and he scores. And it seems really simple. I think we can retroactively go back and say maybe Drew Bannister was not putting together the type of offense that was going to result in goals being scored. And sometimes something as simple as shoot the puck. It's like in baseball, swing the bat, swing at strikes. In hockey, shoot the puck.
And what I loved about the first 2 games is that they came out and just won decisively at Madison Square Garden 5-2, and Bolduc all of a sudden goes from being a non-factor because he was in the press box half the time to being an impact player, and he's got impact player talent. He's just young. But the game the other night in Jersey, the Blues got those 2 early goals, and that was fantastic. That was a big deal to get the jump on a team. And then as the game went on, the Devils they had some really dominant stretches. And if you add it up at the end of the night, they had like 80% of the high danger chances. And it was really kind of lopsided after the Blues took that 2-0 lead. But this is another thing that plays into their strength. Before, because they were so offensively impaired, they're putting way too much pressure on the goaltenders. They had to steal every game, or they had to steal so many periods where the Blues could stay in the game. and there just wasn't enough offensive support. So we saw the other night, the second one, where the first game, the offense was there all night. The second game, a really good offense early, 2-0 lead. And then you have a guy like Binnington, who this is his second really strong year in a row. And he was able to take that 2-0 lead. And he was able, even when the shots started pouring down on him, raining down on him, he thrives on that stuff, especially you give him something to work with. You give him a lead to work with. He's superb at protecting it. I think that's when he's at his best. So they won both kind of games where they just won offensive force in the game one, game two. It was kind of a mix, early lead. But then, your goaltender's going to have to come up big because New Jersey's starting to get really feisty and they're starting to fire a lot of shots. That's the kind of game they can win too because of the quality of the goaltending they have.
With Pauley Miklasz, I'm Matt Pauley. It's the Gashouse Gang, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Thursday football, Thanksgiving football. We had the triple header, and the Bears-Lions game is going to be known as the game that got Matt Eberflus fired. He was fired this morning. Amazingly, after he met with the media again this morning, he finally got called into the office and lost a job. Bertie, I don't root for people to lose jobs. There are certainly times where in sports people deserve to lose their jobs. I think we can say that about Matt Eberflus. I'm not trying for this to be a Eberflus beat-up session, but it was pretty remarkable to see the reaction nationally to what happened in that game yesterday. But it got me thinking, we see a lot of really bad clock management in both the NFL and high-level college football. And I don't get it. For head coaches to not be able to be ready for every single type of clock situation, it is a dereliction of duty, and it's one of the easiest things to be on top of.
I was thinking about this because you mentioned this is something we were going to talk about, and in all candor, I was thinking more about it in the NFL terms, and I think it also applies to college coaches. Now, there's a few reasons, and I'll be quick about this because I was thinking about it. And I've covered the NFL for a long time. I mean, a really long time. First of all, some of these guys that we see, like Matt Eberflus, struggle in this area, they're just bad coaches. They're bad head coaches. There should be coordinators, not head coaches. Another guy that fits, I tell you what, Antonio Pierce is that kind of guy. Got a lot of respect for him, but he doesn't know how to run a game. Brian Daboll is like that. Coordinator, absolutely. Running the whole thing, like keeping the whole wide view in his head of what he needs to do with the game on the line. No, some of these guys that are thrust into head coaching jobs don't have the grasp of the entire game. They really don't. And this also goes into another area. You got all of these coordinators, but especially offensive coordinators, they're thrust into the head coaching job. Listen, my friend Mike Martz, one of the greatest offensive coordinators I've ever seen. Unbelievable. There's a Super Bowl trophy with the St. Louis Rams because of that. He struggled in game management and clock management. And a lot of it has to do with the fact, and we see this with Kyle Shanahan, we see it with a number of offensive-minded coaches who are coordinators, not necessarily as well-rounded head coach as they should be. And they've got their mind, and they've got their mind on what they're going to call when they get the ball back, and they're looking at the play sheet. They're not looking at the rest of the game, right? Well, that's defense. A coach can handle that. So you have guys, especially offensive coordinators turned head coaches, who still call plays. They don't pay enough attention to the entire game. They don't see the entire game. They're too preoccupied with calling fancy plays. These guys can change, though. Andy Reid, when he was at Philadelphia, was notorious for just terrible game management, baffling decisions with the game on the line. And it was really a bad problem. Andy Reid fixed himself. He got better at that. He really, really did. And I think he runs a game now about as well as anyone. A lot of times it's who your quarterback is, because we don't talk about the game management mistakes if the team wins as much, not nearly as much. But when you have a kind of quarterback who can take your team down the field and basically erase your mistakes as a head coach, the problem is kind of minimized, or it's certainly reduced. Sometimes it's bad field goal kickers. Some of these guys, I talked about never get better at it. I mentioned Andy Reid as someone who gets better at it, but I tell you what, I don't know that Kyle Shanahan's ever gotten better at it. Dan Quinn, who famously just completely botched the Super Bowl when he had the Falcons against the Patriots. Dan Quinn is he's a strong coach in a lot of areas, but I've been watching the Commanders a lot lately, and during this slide that they're on, some of the game management issues have been glaring. So he hasn't been able to get better. Some guys just can't handle the pressure well. Like I think Sean McDermott is a really good coach, but the one thing that's missing in his game is being able to make those smart decisions under fire. As much as I respect Mike Tomlin, he is a Hall of Fame coach, there's no doubt about it. He is strong in every area except the one area where he still has slips is game management, clock management. It's one of the reasons they lost to Cleveland recently. So I think there's a variety of reasons. There's not a one size fits all type thing. Some dudes just can't handle pressure very well. I mean, so anyway, I probably went on too long, but I think it's a fascinating question, and I give you credit for it. But I think there's so many factors, and it's interesting to just introduce all those different factors I talked about.
This isn't an original thought by me by any stretch of the mind, but I do think there's some people are just going to scoff at what I'm about to say, and that's fine. And I'm not a video game guy. I don't play video games very often, but with the proliferation of people playing Madden and it being you know how to manage a game if you are really good at that, more and more people are very understanding of what you should do in those situations. I am still shocked that there has not been an NFL head coach that can admit to themselves that they're not great at clock management and have found somebody to be a clock management coordinator who makes the clock management decisions for them. I think you go do that, you get better if you're a bad clock manager.
I think you're right. And I would add to that, it's the same thing, but I would add one more point because it's all relative. It's all related, I should say. You have to rely on your assistant coaches. Like you can't be the great and powerful Oz where, no, I got this. It's all on me. I'm the coach. I'm running everything. You gotta be secure in your own shoes to be able to just, have one guy or two guys upstairs in the booth that's going to stay in your ear about, Coach, I think we need to do this. And you're not going to take their head off because they dare, are trying to tell you what you should do. But I think smart coaches want help from other smart people. And just because they're the head coach, there's a reasons why you have assistants and all these staffers. And a lot of them are really smart people. They might not have the chops to be a head coach, but they can help head coaches win games in the heat of the moment even. So your point's entirely correct.
It's the Gashouse Gang. We are brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Bernie, we love talking about Saliga.
Absolutely. And one thing about Saliga Heating and Cooling, and I want to emphasize this, there's a lot. They've been around since 1927, and they are an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. And they do residential work and commercial work, all makes and models. In addition to repairs or installing new American Standard equipment, they also have that maintenance program called the Priority Club. If you become a member, you'll get some perks and like faster appointment times, things like that. Because you're in the Priority Club, it means that, hey, you get the priority. And there's no like big cost to this. It's just a smart way to go about things. And take a look at it by going to Saliga Heating and Cooling on SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. But when you're in this maintenance program, we have found this out. It can extend the life of the equipment you have. Like we had a boiler, and we thought, oh man, I think we're gonna have to replace this. We've had it a long time. And they came out on a maintenance call, and we said, "Is our boiler shot pretty much? Because it looks like it's on its last legs." They said, "No, you can get a couple more years out of it." And the fact that we were on this maintenance program, we were able, because of their advice after they looked at it, gave us a couple more years of life with this boiler, because those things are not cheap. So I'm just giving you like an actual story in the Miklasz home to explain why I think these guys are fantastic. And they also have that American Standard connection. So go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. You find out all the services. Financing options available, subject to credit approval. We love them. It's SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. And Mr. Dan Saliga, thanks for sponsoring the Gashouse Gang.
Just a couple minutes left in this edition of the Gashouse Gang. Let's go ahead to the football weekend, and a lot of stuff has already taken place with both the NFL and college football, with there being Thursday and Friday games this week. Bernie, real quick, college football locally, it's rivalry weekend. Missouri and Arkansas are going to play. Missouri's got a chance for a 9-win regular season, which would put them in position for a possible 10-win overall season. Illinois, they've got a game against Northwestern. They'll head to Evanston for that. Same thing for Illinois. They're sitting on 8 wins. So neither of these teams are headed to the college football playoff, but my goodness, with wins that they should get this weekend, they can put themselves in position for just a spectacular year.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think both of these games, the opponent is going to be the proverbial tough out. I think Arkansas can be really, really feisty. The coach is coaching for his job. They're going to come in here fired up. They're tired of getting slapped around by Mizzou. So Pittman will have that team ready to go, and Mizzou can't afford to have some of these lapses we've seen. But I think on Senior Day, it's going to be a huge deal. And the thing of it is, Missouri's got 19 wins since the start of last season. And I was looking this up, and this is actually tied for third in the SEC. 19 wins, tied for third. Only Georgia and Bama have won more games over the last 2 seasons than Mizzou, and they're tied with Ole Miss. So the point I'm making is that they've come such a long way, and if they can get to a 9th win and then follow that up by getting to a 10th, but just getting to the 9, they got to do this. They can't afford to lose this game. It'll just leave a little bit of a sour taste in the aftermath, because they are on such a positive trajectory, even though there was some disappointment in the season. So for Mizzou, this is one you got to have, especially Brady Cook's probably Luther Burden's final home game. And others, you got to win the game. I'm a little concerned about Illinois, because I think you look at Northwestern, they're 4-7, but they actually play better than that. They're a really stubborn team. They're a hard-nosed team. They're a tough team, and they've won 7 out of the last 10 games in this series. So Illinois should have a fight on its hand, and I hope they get it done, because I'm an Illini fan as well.
NFL football this weekend, I think clearly the game of the weekend is Eagles and Ravens. I mean, there's a scenario where that's a Super Bowl preview. These are both teams that have expectations of deep playoff runs.
Philadelphia is still trying to prove that, okay, Detroit is clearly a team to beat in the NFC, but a lot of people are it's okay. I don't disagree, but they're starting to talk up the Eagles as a team that can knock off the Lions. Well, maybe they can. I don't know. So this is a big kind of, we're going to show you type game for them. And Baltimore has got problems, even though they're a winning team and they're a good team. They're vulnerable in some ways. I was looking at this from the wagering angle. I don't wager, but if I did, I still like to look at things. So if you look at this game, Baltimore's a 3-point favorite, and I'll go through this really quick. The case for taking Philadelphia and the points, Jalen Hurts is 18. I take that back. The one thing, underdogs are 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 of the Philadelphia-Baltimore games head to head. So this has been one where the underdog against the spread has cashed in a lot, and the Eagles are underdogs in this one. But then you look at the Lamar Jackson factor, and I'll just read you a couple of things on this. He has a phenomenal winning percentage straight up against NFC teams. It borders on the unbelievable. It's so dominant. On top of that, Jackson and the Ravens are 27-9 straight up and 22-13 against the spreads in a game that follows a game where they scored 30 points. And that's since 2018. So they're coming off a game where they scored 30. Jackson is 24-11 straight up as a single-digit home favorite since 2018. And this is a biggie. When home teams in their pre-bye week, the Ravens will go into the bye after this. Home teams in their pre-bye week after week 8 are 72-37-2 against the spread since 2010. That's a 66% winning percentage against the spread. So,
that's a big number.
There's a lot of stuff there that tells you Baltimore. So I like to provide this info for people that care about it. And I think a lot of people care about it, or they're interested to see if it turns out. If it turns out wrong, then they can tease me, and that's fine too.
We have just a moment, but I know you had a thought on the 49ers Bills as well.
I love the Bills laying 7. The 49ers are 5-6. they've lost 2 straight. They're all beat up. They're playing poorly by their regular standards. This is going to be a harsh, cold weather game. Niners had one of those last week in Green Bay. They lost by 28. Here's the stat that gives me confidence in this. Buffalo's on a run of 9-0 straight up and 6-2-1 against the spread in post-bye weeks. So Buffalo's coming off the bye, and they've done extraordinarily well in those situations. So I'd be stunned if the Niners won this game. I'd truly be stunned.
Bernie, have a wonderful weekend. We will see you on Monday.
Matt, always a pleasure, my friend. You have a great weekend. We're looking forward to the Monday version. We're all hands on deck of the Gashouse Gang. Looking forward to that. This has been the Gashouse Gang, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. A reminder, follow us and subscribe on YouTube at KMOX Sports. Also, make sure to subscribe to Bernie's channel at The Bernie Show on YouTube as well. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you again coming up on Monday.